Hey YouTube, and welcome back to the channel, Book Challenge Chats. We have now up to book 12. Sorry, I'm still a little stuffy and sinusy congested. It's been that kind of weird weather pattern lately. But as always, if you enjoy these videos, please press the like button, also subscribe, and turn on notifications. That way you get the notifications as to when new videos come up. Upcoming book giveaways. There's a whole bunch up here that once I get caught up recording, they're going to be book giveaways. A lot of fantasy books, a philosophy book. So stay tuned for those because they'll be coming up. So anyway, we've now hit to book 12, and I've gone back to one of my favorite authors, J.R.R. Tolkien, The Nature of Middle-earth. And it was edited by Carl F. Hostetter. Now, what this is it's really a lot of notes, pieces of scrap paper, stuff that Tolkien, I don't know if he ever meant to have published, or if these were just things that he was trying to work out for himself. Like, the different years. There's so many different years. There's like, the year of the tree, and the solar year, and a human year, and the elven year, and it's just there's a lot there. And this book is also in 3 parts. Part 1 is timing and aging, and this is a very, unless you're a math buff, and I'm not, this was a very intimidating section of the book. It's a lot of mathematical equations and tables, but the interesting thing is Tolkien was trying to figure out, at least to himself, is we know the elves are basically, I guess, eternal, but how do they age? How do they grow? And when do they have kids? And when does sort of that the fear, I guess they call it, when does that start to drain within an elf before they maybe might pass on? These were all things that he was trying to work within his time. I mean, there's the Valiant year. He looks at the Quendai, and the Eldarin traditions, and with the awakening and the aging of elves and key dates. It's real interesting stuff, but it's also very, like I said, unless you're a math buff, this is really, really a tough section of the book to read. And math was not something that I was good at, like basic addition, subtraction, multiplying, and dividing. But once you got into algebra and you started doing factoring and all that stuff, it was just like, no, I could not get it, and math and me kind of parted ways. So I was kind of glad when I got done with that, with part 1 of this book. I mean, I got a lot out of it, and I definitely appreciated a lot of what was in it, and the fact that Tolkien, I mean, as much detail as he's gone into for the stuff that's already been published. This was published in November of last year, by the way. But as detailed as he gets already, the fact that he was even more detailed for himself is just like, wow. I mean, what he had done, all the system that he had set up didn't seem to be good enough. He still had questions that he kind of wanted to answer for himself. So part 2 is body, mind, and spirit. So it's a little more societal and philosophical. So there's like gender and sex. Beards, because elves really didn't have beards. Knowledge and memory, spirit, knowledge of the Valar, fate and free will. So, and then there's a little bit from the Finwë and Miriel conversation, which, if you haven't read that, do. It's really good. I believe it's in one of the History of Middle Earth books. It might also be either in the Silmarillion or Unfinished Tales, but either way, it's a great dialogue. I would suggest that one for sure. So and death. It talks about the death and how over time the elf's spirit sort of fades. I mean, yes, they are kind of eternal. They are kind of undying unless they die a physical death or something traumatic happens and they just all of a sudden don't want to go on anymore, and that's it. They decide that's it. I'm cashing it in, and they die. They basically give up their spirit and die. That's really the only ways that we know of that elves can die. But over the years, their spirit does fade, and they aren't. They're not as strong as they used to be. They might not be as knowledgeable as they used to be. So it was kind of like some of the things that we kind of thought we saw in the Lord of the Rings. Again, these were things that that he was questioning, and like I said, it's just little sidelines of manuscript scraps of paper, stuff that he kind of just wrote. I don't think any of this stuff was typewritten. It was all basically just all kind of handwritten notes that he was just trying to make for himself to again try to make sense of things. So part 3 is the world, its lands, and its inhabitants. Obviously, we know the world starts with the Ainur, which are, I guess you could say, the gods. And Melko, or Melkor, being the one that is the fallen god, who becomes Morgoth, who Sauron serves back in the Silmarillion. Then comes the awakening in the elves, and that's where obviously everything really starts. I mean, it's kind of, we see that in a sense that the gods of Middle Earth are sort of like the Olympian gods of the Greek period. They're constantly kind of interfering, and they're not just okay, we're gonna sit back and let people live. We're gonna take an active part here in what's going on. Morgoth does that more than anyone, as he tries to basically, he tries to take destruction to the elves. Basically, is what he does, because he just and he desecrates the elves by capturing them and turning them into more monstrous beasts and breeding them, and that's how orcs come into play. Orcs are just desecrated forms of elves, really, is what you've got. And it's kind of states so in here. It's also in the Silmarillion as well. Then we learn about the dwarves and how one of the gods created the dwarves because he wanted a creation of his own. And the dwarves were not totally ever accepted by the Ainur, but they were left to live, as they basically lived in mountains, mining and mining for gold. Then came men, humankind, and obviously at the end of the Lord of the Rings, we find out that the age of the elf on Middle Earth is gone. It's now the age of man, and that's that. But I mean, in terms of what's in part 3, here there's like the powers of the Valar, the making of lembas. So if you want to know how the bread was made, he kind of has a little recipe for you in here. Elvish economy, Manwë's ban, when the dwarf or when the elves go to when they leave and they go to Middle Earth against Manwë's wishes. He says, "Okay, you leave. You're not coming back. You're not coming back to the Undying Lands. You're not coming back to us. You're going to stay there, and that's it. So there's that. The aging of the Numenorians, because remember they lived a little bit longer than humans, and Aragon was a Numenorian, and I think it was like a 3-to-1 lifespan. So they could live anywhere from about 250 to 350 years, maybe even a little bit longer, depending. So this book kind of goes into that. Galadriel and Celeborn, how they kind of got together. Note on Dwarvish voices. From the Hunt for the Rings, there's a little short story kind of there. And then on the rivers and the beacon hills of Gondor and how that all came to be in the symbolization. And then there's 2 appendices, which is a metaphysical and theological themes. It's interesting because Tolkien was a very devout Catholic. And what the appendix does in this one is it tries to connect Catholicism to Middle Earth. And it tries to find those things that you can kind of put the two together and say, he's worked kind of Catholicism into Middle Earth. And it does talk about it. And I think, whether you are a believer or not, I don't think it really matters as long as you just, if you're a Middle Earth fan, I think you should at least read it. It's an interesting read. I gave this 5 stars, even though part 1 was so darn intimidating with all the math and all the numbers and the equations and the tables and all of that. But total, it clocks in at 440 pages. That's really more with the index too, so it's actually a little bit shorter than that. But I recommend it. It's, again, 5 stars on Goodreads. Came out, like I said, November of 2021. If we'll see anything more Tolkien, I don't know, because obviously Christopher Tolkien is no longer with us, and a lot of this came from Christopher Tolkien to Karl Hofstadter. I'm sorry, Hofstadter. I want to get the name right. So if we'll see more of Tolkien's stuff, I don't know. I do know Amazon Prime does have coming up this fall the Lord of the Rings series that's going to be streaming. They're starting at the Second Age. I don't know why. I think they're just trying to show when Sauron comes to power, but I think it would have been much better if they would have started with the Silmarillion tales and worked your way through, kind of chronological, but they're not doing that. And I'm still looking very forward to watching that when it does come, when it is available for streaming. So again, 5 stars. Just about anything Tolkien wrote or is involved with for me is 5 stars. Just my kind of bias, I guess. So as always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, press the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this, and what you learned, and what you may agree with or not agree with. Also, suggestions for what you think I should be reading, or your Goodreads name. That way, I can send you an invitation and we can kind of connect and see what each other is reading and all of that good stuff. I always love to see comments. So, as always, thank you for the support and keep YouTube literate. And until next time, bye-bye.